Hello, and welcome to the One Question Leadership Podcast. This is Tamika Smith-Jones, Athletics Chief Operating Officer at Kennesaw State University. There are so many professional leadership development opportunities out there to help you grow, but the NCAA 2007 Dr. Charles Wickham Leadership Institute transformed my life indescribably, personally and professionally, and helped me develop my leadership philosophy and executive team. Thank you to all who have been parted in my journey. It's the gift that keeps on giving. A tad bit of leadership advice for COOs, deputy ADs, and senior administrators. Remember, you're the glue. Help bridge gaps, make sure balls don't drop, set your team up for success the best you can. And for your teammates, the more your senior team knows, the better they can assist, moving hurdles and any enabling factors that may bottleneck or stall work.
Greetings, this is Ty Brown, and welcome to the One Question Leadership Podcast, where we highlight executive and organizational leadership. Be sure to follow us on Twitter and Instagram at 1Q Leadership. I'm joined by Nicole Alderson. Nicole is an Executive Associate Athletics Director, Chief Operating Officer, and Senior Women Administrator at University of Toledo. Greetings, Nicole. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I really appreciate being here today.
I appreciate you being here, too. Of course, you work with Brian Blair. Brian Blair, what I appreciate about Brian Blair is that he is, when you talk about core values and talk about understanding who he is and what he wants to accomplish and what he wants the people around him to be in terms of themselves and the institution he works at, he can drop it at the just right off that bullet point. Here it is, these things, right, are important to us. So I wonder about working for him. If you're working for him, he must have saw some of that in you, too, in terms of understanding who you are, core values, and how you like to execute things.
Yeah.
Talk to me a little bit about that.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm extremely appreciative of the opportunity that Brian Blair has provided me at the University of Toledo. But right out of the gate, from my first conversation with him before we even were going through the interview process, he was extremely transparent, very clear with his communication on what this position was going to be. As I knew someone was retiring. Kelly Andrews was retiring from that position, so you can go on and read. But he was very upfront that this is not going to be that same position. And with that, he clearly communicated his expectations of this role, but also who he stood for, like you were talking about, his values. And that's what really resonated with me, too, that we had very similar values, that family, that passion, that servant leadership, the gratitude, the continuous education, that we're constantly learning, we're constantly growing. And that really resonated with me. It was definitely a program I wanted to be a part of. I'd heard great things about him. It was going to be a new role for me. I was transitioning out of the position that I had been in into a very different role. But after conversations with him, I had a lot of trust in him that he was going to pour into the entire athletic department and the staff and the community. And that's what really inspired me. And I was like, you know what, I have to go with this. This is such a phenomenal opportunity for my own personal and professional growth and development in this industry.
Yeah, 100%. You can't beat that, right?
Not at all.
You're going feeling like that and understanding, this is what this is going to be? Count me in.
Yeah, and a lot of excitement.
Yeah. Of course, almost 15 years in the industry, right? So you think about coming into a job, and again, with Brian, we bring it here for a reason, right? You've been there for a couple months now, and you're already knee-deep in the strategic plan, right? Talk to me about that aspect. Of course, I talked to Brian and Pat Chun when they were doing their strategic plan and wrapping it up, putting a bow tie on it, and they started executing some of it. And then, of course, Brian now at Toledo. But I wonder about you. What is your experience in creating strategy, and how do you feel about your experience now? And tell me about the way you've researched and planned out what you're doing there at Toledo.
Yeah, absolutely. So I've been a part of strategic plans, maybe not on this scale that we are doing it at the University of Toledo, but I was on the board of directors of N4A, going through a strategic plan process, been on institution campus levels, running a department, and implementing strategies on how we're going to achieve our overall goal. How do our goals of our department align with the mission of the athletic department, and then even more so the mission of the entire university as well. So I have been a part of those processes at previous stops along my career, but coming into this position at the University of Toledo, I knew that my role was going to be, when I got on campus, I was going to be diving into the strategic plan immediately. Right. So I think it actually, I'm really excited about this opportunity because I think it has allowed me the opportunity to really engage with individuals that I probably wouldn't have engaged with in the first 2 months of being on campus. And it gave me the opportunity to really learn about the University of Toledo, not just the athletic department, but the university as a whole and the community. So as I got onto campus, we really dove into meeting one-on-one with a lot of individuals, meeting with every single head coach. And then in the process of that, we were also planning a strategic planning retreat. And it wasn't just a retreat internally within our athletic department. We talk about, and Brian talks a lot about Team Toledo and what Team Toledo means. It's not just a catchphrase, but Team Toledo really is locking arms with everybody. It's our athletic department, it's the university, and it's also our community as a whole. How can all of Team Toledo rise above, and how do we do it together and celebrate each other's successes? So that's what our strategic planning retreat really was. We invited individuals from campus, from the community, and all really got together. We brought in Dr. Kevin White and had him speak. We had the president of the university speak that day, in addition to Brian, really talking about the landscape of college athletics, really educating everyone in that room. So we all went in, we were all on the same page. And then we divided into small groups and had really dove into the discussion about what are we doing really well?
Right.
What do we need to improve on? Really a SWOT analysis of our athletic department and how we can all work together. So
I find that interesting when you talk about strategic planning, the experiences you had, the experience you're having, right? There's a difference between plan and strategy, right? Plan is like, okay, so we want to build this, we want to do this in this time frame. That's what we're going to do. That's the plan. Strategy is like, so we expect these things to happen. And so how can we put things in place so when this happens, we're ready for it, right? And if it doesn't happen, we'll adjust. So tell me about that aspect in terms of designing that plan and thinking about Toledo and what you guys want to accomplish with this strategic plan.
yeah, absolutely. In the month of June, we're really diving into our strategic priorities and what are our priorities, what are our objectives, and really what are those action items and how measurable are they? What are the timelines that we're going to want to achieve these goals and these benchmarks that we're setting for ourselves? But at the same time, we have to understand that we're going through a really transformational time in the NCAA. So what we're planning for today might not be what we need to be planning for tomorrow.
Okay.
So I think you also have to be really fluid and you need to be able to adapt and pivot. And I think we've all learned how to pivot in these last couple years. So I think that also has to kind of be worked into the strategic plan as well, as that ability to be flexible. And our strategic plan is in a document that we're going to create and we're going to launch in August and then visit again in 5 years. This is something that's going to really be part of our framework. And as we're moving forward, how are we looking back at our strategic plan? How are we implementing it? Are we meeting the benchmarks and the goals that we set out for ourselves? But I think you have to be a little bit flexible sometimes too, because things can change and they can change quickly, and you need to be able to adapt.
Yeah, what I find interesting is, right, you create the strategy and you want to look back at it 5 years from now. But if I created the strategy, every couple months I'm looking at page 15, like, is that what we said? Like, how is these things going? So there has to be, I say that to say there probably has to be intermittent evaluation points before 5 years comes. So do you build that into the strategy?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think as you're planning out your strategies and your goals, that some of them have timelines, some of them are we need to do immediately.
Yeah.
This needs to be a focus, this needs to be a priority, and this is in our foreseeable future. Like this needs to get done and it's going to help build upon. Some of them are kind of like a building blocks too. Some it might take 3 to 5 years in order to be able to accomplish that goal, but every day we're working towards those. And I think a big part of it is celebrating the success. We don't want to just celebrate in 5 years that we met our goals in 5 years. We need to celebrate all the time. The little things. There's a lot of hard work that goes into the day-to-day operations of an athletic department, as we all know. So you got to celebrate those wins, those victories, and even if they're as small as they may be or as large as they may be, it's really important to celebrate those.
I imagine, this is an assumption, you'll correct me if I'm wrong, that you're creating a strategic plan didn't necessarily fall at the same time as Toledo's creating a strategic plan.
As who said?
Toledo, the school. So they probably already have a plan that they're executing. So tell me about doing your best to weave the athletics strategic plan into the school's strategy.
Yeah, absolutely. So they actually just finished and released the strategic plan
good.
for the university. So we actually are very on point.
Excellent.
They also used a consulting group that we are also consulting with as well. So having some consistency in that. But then I spent a lot of time going out on campus and talking to the individuals that were involved in the strategic plan on campus. What went really well in your process, maybe what didn't go well, talking through some of the initiatives they have within college athletics. But even bigger than that, how can athletics be a part of the initiatives in the university that maybe we're not named directly in? How do we assist in campus experience and what that looks like? How do we assist in enrollment and the admissions? Because I think we can all really work together, and I think that's really what Team Toledo is. How do we all help each other reach success? Whether if that's our direct goal or their direct goal, we're all working together.
Right. I think that's excellent. We're here at NACTA. Every time you come to one of these things and there are 1,000 people talking on stage about 1,000 different things and thousands of people talking on the floor and in the lobby about 1,000 different things, you hope that you can come away with your mind either blown, right, because of what you heard, or at least there's one or two things that you can apply on campus, or you come away affirmed that what we're doing is probably the right thing. So tell me about what you've seen here that has you thinking in terms of NACTA and college athletics industry.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I love coming to this convention because it's just so energizing. There's so much passion in every room you enter. It's family reunions everywhere you look. But a lot of great topics are being discussed today. I find it challenging to pick what session. It's kind of a divide and conquer.
Yeah.
It's like, oh my gosh, I can't be in 4 places at once. I need a clone. So it's divide and conquer with your staff and who can go to which one, and then get back together and share resources and share kind of some of the things that you've learned. I attended a session yesterday morning with M4A, one of their general sessions with Jen Fry and Steph Wheeler, and they were talking about the DEIB, and one of the Jen said something along the lines of which I felt could be applicable to so many different things is simple but not easy. Sometimes things sound really simple, but they're actually very challenging, and you have to do sometimes. You got to get out of your comfort zone, and what are you willing to lose and what are you willing to risk to be able to stand up for what is right and what you really truly believe in. So I thought that was an extremely powerful message yesterday, and that's something that's really resonated, and I've thought about it so many times since hearing her say that. I wrote it down and I was like, this is going to stick. And then I've attended a lot of different sessions on NIL. NIL is one of the areas that I will oversee or that I do oversee at the University of Toledo. So really educating myself and really networking with other individuals who are leading that space on their campuses as well, about idea sharing and networking with those individuals. And how are we providing the best possible experience for our student athletes on our campus?
Right. Yeah, which is excellent. You start thinking about 5 and 10 years from now, right? Who knows where we'll be as an industry? Who knows where you'll be? You know what I mean? In terms of your career, you may be the president of the biggest corporation in the state of Montana. Who knows, right? But you do want to think about the future. Has there been things here that have you thinking intermediate time and long term in terms of the industry and in terms of your career specifically?
Yeah, absolutely. I think as I was saying earlier, we're in a really transformational moment within college athletics. And how do we stay true to who we really are as an institution in higher education? And how do we ensure that we're really maintaining the educational piece in that higher education? But I think about making sure we're also providing the best possible experience for our student athletes. And I think a lot of the transformation is really making sure our student athletes have a voice. So thinking about the future of college athletics and what that's going to look like. Gosh, I think we probably all wish we had a crystal ball that we could look into and be able to make sure that we're putting in those. As I'm building out a strategic plan, I want to know what's going to happen in 5 years, because I want to make sure that we're working towards that and we're being trailblazers and that we are being kind of that gold standard in providing our students those resources for them to be really successful. But gosh, I would love to know exactly what the future is going to hold.
Thinking about what I said earlier in terms of strategic planning, and we'll wrap on a couple questions here. You know, the difference between a plan is just saying we want to do this and this is how we're going to execute it, or saying we think this is going to happen and this is how we're going to plan for it. Tell me about thinking about that. How much research can you actually do when you're trying to plan for 2, 3, and 4 years ahead from now? What is the research you did when when you're trying to think about 3 years, right? Because just like you said, industry changes so fast. There's legislation from the government, federal, there's legislation from state. There are schools that do things. There are conferences that change and do things. People always change, right? In terms of people changing positions, people leaving, or people individually changing as themselves. So how do you really, and this is the key to all the gold in the world, right? How do you really create a strategy for something that's 3 years from now? How can you best follow the trends if there are any trends?
Yeah, I think you need to do your research. I think you need to continue to network and talk to other people in the field, but you need to read, you need to be listening, you need to stay really current in policies, procedures, what we think is coming down the pipeline, and we can't be reactive. We really need to take a proactive approach as much as you possibly can as you're trying to predict the future. But it's about really being diligent and continuing to be a student. Continuing to constantly educate yourself. And I think that's one thing that Brian Blair does very well. And we're really fortunate, but that it's created a culture within our athletic department and our executive staff team, constantly sharing. If someone reads something, and I think this is what I love about the staff, is how collaborative we are and how supportive. If I know something, everyone should know something. And that's kind of that mentality. So if one of us reads an article that really resonates with us, and it may be really specific to their area, that we're sharing that, and that we drop that in our group chat, the link, and watch this, read this, listen to this, because we need to continue to educate ourselves to be current, so that we can create a plan and a strategy to meet the needs.
I'll ask the last question here and then we'll wrap. Specifically about your leadership style, right? We're going on 15 years in the industry. Tell me about that evolution, about where you see yourself in terms of how you lead other people and how you work with the people that you work with.
Yeah, I think absolutely being a servant leader, you need to pour into others, that it's really important. You can't do anything by yourself, and that you need to have a really strong network of individuals that are going to help pour into you as well. I think it goes both ways. But really being a servant leader, being really wanting to educate those around me and be able to provide opportunities to those around me, because I think that's how I was able to get to the position that I'm in today, is because people poured into me. They challenged me. Right. I had truth tellers that kept telling me what I needed to do.
You're accountable, right?
Yeah, you need that. I think you need to tell your goals and say your goals out loud. Because then the ones who really are in your corner are going to hold you accountable to those goals. So I want to do that for other individuals. I want to be able to help others grow, and help them in their leadership and push them out of their comfort zone. Sometimes people need to be told and shown the path, and encouraged to take that leap of faith, because I know I can speak for myself that you don't ever think you're never ready. So sometimes you just got to jump 2 feet in and trust that you surround yourself with really good people that are going to pour into you and help you, and you're going to help each other to be successful. So yeah, I want to do that for other individuals.
Pouring into people and putting it back in the bucket. I think that's excellent. Well, Nicole, this has been an excellent conversation. I really appreciate you joining us on the One Question Leadership Podcast.
Yes, thank you for having me.
Yes, ma'am. That was Nicole Alderson. She is the Executive Associate Athletics Director, Chief Operating Officer, Senior Woman Administrator at University of Toledo. And of course, I am Ty Brown with One Question. And keep in mind, the role of a leader is to create and maintain an environment that people want to be a part of. And as always, be better tomorrow than you are today. This episode of the One Question Leadership Podcast is produced by Spades Media Group, solving problems using creative leadership.